All right, let's do it all again. What do we got today? Okay. Is this Mars? No, this is Northwest Territories here in Canada. This is fine. This is fine. This is nothing to see. This is another day, another blood red apocalyptic skyline. You know, just the normal stuff that you would see up here in the Great Red North. This is fine. So here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. I've been doing this every day for 10 years now. And I can unequivocally say now that we're fucked. Okay? We are fucked. It feels good to just say that. You know, it feels good to transcend a new era of SHTF where the Canadian prepper is openly using profanity, because it's true. And you know that things are getting weird when I start cursing freely without fear of recourse, be it from you, my subscribers, or the YouTube algorithm, because this is where we're at. This is the new normal. The markets are in free fall. The global financial crisis looms as Evergrande, one of China's largest real estate firms, has all but collapsed. They're declaring bankruptcy as of 2 hours ago, I believe, and we're going to see what sort of implications that has for the market tomorrow. I have a feeling it's going to be an interesting day on Wall Street. Boy, did Michael Burry get lucky in his big short of the market 2.0, in which he just put up $1.6 billion. The short the market, as we told you a couple days ago. Hopefully you went out and bought some gold. But you probably don't have any disposable income because everything costs an arm and a leg. I forgot about that part. And then there's the war that's not going so well. Lots of strange things happening in the war. Stoltenberg comes out today. The NATO chief, he came out and said, don't worry, we see no change in Russia's nuclear posture. Really? Who asked if Russia had changed its nuclear posture? You got to think about these things. Who asked him if Russia had changed their nuclear posture? Why would we care all of a sudden? Well, you see, whenever they come out and they say, don't worry, Russia hasn't changed their nuclear posture, it's probably because they're about to do something stupid. And they're about to do something provocative that is going to compel the Russians forward even more. Okay? So we got that to talk about. The central banks continue to secretly buy gold. You know how I'm always talking about how the powers that be have no interest in telling you that the shit's going to hit the fan, and not because they're all necessarily evil people, but because it just doesn't make any logistical sense. I mean, what are you going to do? You don't have bunkers for everybody. It's just going to cause pandemonium. Let people just enjoy their final days without being bothered by the impending catastrophe, right? Well, the same thing holds true for gold. They don't want people rushing into the gold market. I mean, imagine if the government came on today and said, could you just imagine what the price of gold would be tomorrow if the government came on the air tonight and said it's probably a good idea for Americans to buy gold? Could you imagine? The vaults would be cleared out. They don't want to do that. Imagine you're a rich guy. I mean, a really, really rich guy, okay? And we're talking billions of rich, right? And you see the dire situation the world is in. You see the intersect between conflict, climate, and contagion, and how it is coalescing into a cataclysmic catastrophe. And you're looking at all of your wealth, all those digits on a screen, and you're saying to yourself, if the shit hits the fan, all of my wealth is going to just go poof, up in smoke. So you know that the real thing of value, the only thing that has stood the test of time throughout the ages, is gold. You don't want people buying gold and running the price up, right? You don't want everybody to panic and flood the market when you need those same very things. Okay, this is the same thing with the bunkers. You don't want people taking all the contractors if you need those same contractors to build bunkers for you. And don't expect, but one of these days you're just going to see the price of gold. And remember, gold is measured in dollars. So it's very easy to look at the price, the value of the money that you're purchasing it in and say, oh, well, the price of gold is down today and I'm losing money. No, you're never losing money with gold. Gold retains its value throughout the ages, and because it is a asset which is becoming harder and harder to mine, the return on the investment of the mining is being reduced year after year, and eventually we're just going to run out of the stuff to mine it. That means that the value of it is only going to increase. I'm not trying to sell you on gold. I understand a lot of people just want to stockpile food, and I would say that primarily the best thing you can do right now, I shouldn't be giving anybody financial advice, but prepping is not really financial advice. Anytime you invest in foods, whether freeze-dried foods or non-perishable food items, preps in general, these are things that are always going to retain their value, right? Because you need it to survive. So how much is your survival worth? Even if the price of rice, somehow we have some windfall year, a bumper crop, which is likely not going to happen, at least not for a long time, because of what's happening in China right now with the floods, and now their economy's screwed, and they're probably going to have to keep the revolution at bay, so they're going to have to keep prices down, they're going to empty out their rice coffers, so the price of food is only going to increase. But even if it did, even if the price of rice plummeted, you would still have something that you needed to eat. So value is very largely subjective, is what I'm trying to say. So don't wait for the cue. Do not wait. Understand that the same thing that makes millionaires and billionaires is the same thing that drives preppers to have foresight to get prepared ahead of a catastrophe. Because if you're waiting for the signals that are going to be sent to everybody else at the exact same time, then it's going to be panic, it's going to be pandemonium, and the price of those things is going to skyrocket, okay? So yeah, the global markets are teetering on the brink. The last few days, the market's been in the pisser, and something is definitely going on. I'm just getting weird vibes that, the powers that be know that we're on the precipice of some great reset. It's going to be the banks collapse, the currency collapse, the housing market, everything's going to go maybe at the same time, but it just feels like some black swan is either being cooked up or is going to be let happen on purpose, and that I'm usually not a conspiracy person. I think that a lot of these things are unfolding organically, and there's not always somebody at the helm. You see, that's the hope. A lot of these people who believe in the conspiracy theories, and I used to be one of them, you want there to be, you unconsciously want there to be a secret cabal running things, because it gives you this sense of purpose in the world, like the sense of, maybe the elites know something about the nature of the universe that I don't, and that's like a hope that, well, maybe someday we can get there too. Or it's just a bunch of dumb monkeys who are just flying by the seat of their pants, and nobody knows what's going to happen next. I mean, that's the real scary situation. If there was a cabal that was communicating with reptoids in the other dimensions or something, I would actually bring me a little bit of peace of mind, because that would be like, okay, well, there's hope for me too, right? There's hope that I can somehow figure out what's going on here. But if it's just a bunch of self-serving morons out for themselves in very prestigious places, then that's not good, because that means we don't know what to expect. But I'm thinking that smart enough people foreseen what is coming, and that they have some type of contingency plan, but I guess we're going to see. Because you're seeing the intersect between conflict, climate, contagion, and now commerce, okay, all coalescing into a cataclysmic catastrophe. I did it. I said it all. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt, okay? But it's not looking good. And yeah, the U.S. is preparing for World War III drills in the Pacific, simulating mass casualty incidents. And Biden today just said that, oh yeah, by the way, I'm open to talks with Kim Jong-un without preconditions. Anytime they do this kind of thing, especially in the current climate where you have one of the biggest military drills coming up for 10 days, which is why the South Korean president and the president of Japan are currently doing their trilateral meeting at Camp David with Joe Biden today. I mean, it just seems weird, okay? It seems like they're trying to schmooze Kim Jong-un over so he doesn't misinterpret what they're about to do. But Kim Jong-un realizes that the US and South Korea are simulating an invasion, or at least that's what they're going to interpret it as, regardless. So they're likely in the coming days going to do some sort of missile test. At least that's the prediction, in order to protest what's going on and what's about to happen next week. In terms of these wildfires, what more can I say? 46,000 people, one of Canada's northernmost major cities. Now, when I say major city, any city up there is small. This is right on the brink of the tundra, right? So we're talking about a city of 35,000 people. Apparently 46,000 people in the region of the Northwest Territories that I will show you on a map, because it's important you understand what's going on here. This town is probably going to burn down, unfortunately. It doesn't look good. This fire is about 20 miles from the city center, and there's 3 fires. In fact, it's surrounded by fire. So here is Yellowknife, right in the center here. I'll show you. So Yellowknife is right here, and you have a massive conflagration here, another one here, and this is area burned, so this doesn't mean that this is all burning right now. It's very likely that the fire is just burning on the periphery. And you have another fire here, another fire here. So fires are just converging. You can see the prevailing winds are blowing this way, so the fire is moving in this direction. But this is a huge area. So if this area did all burn, I mean, that would add to Canada's already record amount of area burned. And just to give you some perspective, oh yeah, and Ukraine is mobilizing because they're getting their asses kicked. And that's why the US is scrambling now to send F-16s, no pun intended. I know you're hearing all this talk, oh, they're not going to get F-16s until next year. Well, that's all part of the thing, the run up to it. They're going to get them right away. So here's the thing. This is the amount of area burned this year, and this is the average. So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I believe the record is about here. So we're already exceeded the record. And if that whole area burns down, I mean, we're in a whole new world of calculating these types of fires. The 4 best websites that you need to understand what's going on with the weather, firesmoke.ca is mostly accurate. There's been many times where fires are happening and it doesn't register on here. Like there's been plenty of times I'll walk out, it's smoky as hell outside, but it doesn't show up on the map. But whenever they say something is happening on here, you can bet. A more accurate real-time source of information is going to be Zoom Earth. Now, this doesn't work that well in the night because you can't actually see the smoke pattern, but here you can see it. Okay, so this, and the smoke follows a jet stream almost to a T. And so right now they're seeing smoke all the way down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's from fires burning throughout, some of them throughout the United States, but mostly in British Columbia, all the way up to these massive conflagrations up here in the Northwest Territories, where it is bone dry, and all these fires are out of control. You can see 226,000 hectares for one fire. Absolutely insane. Now, Alaska has not had a massive fire season like the rest of Canada, but you can set your watch next year. It's going to be absolutely chaotic. Right now in British Columbia, because they're seeing record temperatures, this is another great website. It shows you the temperature anomaly. So out here in the West Coast, it is hot as hell, and that is fueling those fires. I do believe in the coming days ahead it's supposed to cool down, but still up in the Northwest Territory regions here, we're getting above average temperatures, which is not helping the fire situation. And lastly, if you want the data, the statistics on these fire situations, so you can predict this, because, I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time, but I could have predicted these fires. I mean, this fire up here, this fire has been burning for months. So it was only a matter of time before there was a fire up there. So I would have got out of there a long time ago. Of course, there's a mass evacuation today, congested roadways. Thankfully, there's only 20,000 people. Everybody knows each other, so it's not like, evacuating a city like LA or something like that. But you can predict this, guys, if you access the right resources. These are available, widely available online. This one provides a lot of the charts, the data, the numbers. So you pair those four things together, it should give you a concise understanding of what you can expect. And if you have any more resources like this that people can utilize, post them in the comment section below. And let's just hope that the firefighters there and the people who are working to create fire breaks in and around the city will be successful, and it won't be another Fort McMurray situation, but it's not looking good right now. It's not looking good on that front. So, yeah. So Ukraine is right now, it appears as though they're in the final stages. I mean, ostensibly, it seems like they're losing. And you guys know I try to not say anything definitively about what's going on with the war because nobody can really know. There's propaganda on both sides. But it appears as though right now it doesn't look like it's going so well. Now, I say that, but we just never know entirely, right? Because we're living in the age of satellite and strategic maneuver warfare where you have to use cunning, you have to use deceit, stratagem in order to exact your plans in a way which is going to be effective. And if the Ukrainians are telling all their plans all the time, then that wouldn't make any sense, right? You wouldn't tell you want your plans to be as silent and strike like a thunderbolt, as Sun Tzu would say. So this deployment of the 82nd Brigade, their final major brigade that was held in reserve, is fairly substantial because they're the most well-armed. As far as I know, they're among the most well-trained. And if they cannot break through in this region that I'm going to show you here, so this is the Robotyne front. This is where they've been actually having a little bit of success overcoming the first line of defense of the Russians. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on at each of these specific places. There's so many videos and there's so many people who are right in there to the minutia. There's plenty of other channels to go, and if you really care that much about what's going on the front line, we view things a bit more strategically. Leave that stuff to the micro analyst experts. But as you can see, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that they're going to have a hard time getting through all of these defenses. There's just so many defensive lines. Unless they predict some sort of collapse or capitulation from the inside, that Russia will not be able to have the manpower in order to actually defend all these areas, and that these are mostly static defenses with minefields and trenches and things of that nature that will be in some way supplemented by artillery and drones and infantry, but maybe the Russians will be a little stretched too thin. And maybe that's what they're hoping for. Who knows what's going on at this point in time? We just don't know. We just got word that apparently the U.S. has given the green light to send F-16s. I mean, I thought this was old news, wasn't it? So if the U.S. is giving the green light for Europe to send F-16s, the question arises again, why isn't the U.S. sending F-16s? Well, Stoltenberg comes on today, and this is important because, yeah, I mean, the fact that they're extending general mobilization, it looks like they're going to have to do full-blown general, like we're talking about. Remember in the beginning of the war where you had the common man in the streets and the girl with the glasses with the rifle in her hand? It was a great Time magazine photo shoot or whatever. We're going to see that again when they thought that they were going to do Kiev, but they didn't. So this guy right here, I mean, how can you not trust this guy? I mean, look at him. He's totally trustworthy, right? No change in Russia's nuclear posture. Again, who asked? Who really asked if there was a change in Russia's nuclear posture? I mean, why would this suddenly be of concern to anybody if everything was going well, right? So it's almost as if they say this in advance of them doing something provocative. Now, what is that going to be? Is that going to be the delivery of more weapons? There's so much probably going on within this conflict that nobody knows except the Russian military leaders, the American military leaders, and the Ukrainian military leaders, and NATO. There's probably weapons being deployed that we don't even know about. But they're starting to send out some signals that maybe something is going to happen in the Black Sea. And it appears as though that the situation is ripe for some kind of false flag somewhere, be it at a nuclear plant, be it in the Black Sea on a commercial vessel. According to the top commander in Europe, that the Allies may have to establish a shipping corridor after the collapse of the UN grain deal, according to Admiral James Stavridis, which of course would mean that Russian ships who've currently disallowed Ukrainians from accessing their ports and are inspecting various vessels, every vessel will come into direct contact with NATO warships, and that will of course be the first altercation in what will likely be a very short war, because it'll quickly go nuclear. Risk of false flag scenarios heat up after the collapse of the grain deal. And just today, another naval drone targeted Russian vessels. But it's important to know what preceded this. I was going to do a video yesterday, but I just didn't have the time. There was another RQ M4 Global Hawk flying around in the Black Sea. So the Russians, they see these surveillance planes, and today I believe there was another one flying around the Poseidon, but that was flying around the Odessa ports. I'm not sure if they can get much from that plane all the way into Crimea and where Russia's Black Sea Fleet is situated. But you can bet that NATO is working in concert with the Ukrainian military to give them coordinates of various things and help them attack targets. And it's only a matter of time. Now, if Russia is winning, and if these rumblings about peace are true, and if Lukashenko comes out today and says, you know what, Russia's pretty much met its goals in Ukraine. Lukashenko, the Belarusian president, came out today and he said, yeah, we met our goals today. So it's all good. And then in the next breath, he says, and if anybody messes with us, we're going to nuke you. Okay. So you get these double messages. So right when you start to think that, okay, maybe and I'm not saying, oh yeah, Russia's gaining the upper hand. Great. That means that our economy is going to collapse, which it is. That's me understanding that, okay, well, then there's a less likelihood that they're going to feel that they need to push the button and utilize those nuclear options. That's the only place that emerges from. I'm not a Russia nut rider. I'm not a Russia fanboy, okay, like some of these guys. I am I do not delude myself as to the true motives of any authoritarian leaders around the world. And yes, there might be some truth that Putin just is looking out for his nation state and his own people and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, you can't be naive to the fact that even though all these people are saying, well, there are no motives beyond the Ukraine, then it's very easy to get complacent and just say, okay, well, maybe Putin was just a good guy who, got dealt a bad hand and he's trying to do what he can to defend his people and blah, blah, blah. But if they gain such an upper hand that they realize, you know what? We just basically annihilated NATO in Ukraine. Let's keep moving forward. They might say that. But anyway, so you're getting mixed messages from the Belarusian leader, which you're having some signals that, okay, maybe NATO is contemplating coming to the table. You had the chief of staff, I believe, of NATO say yesterday, and they took this back, they retracted it right away, as I knew they would, but they said, you know what, maybe we need to concede some territory in exchange for Ukraine becoming a member of NATO. And even Medvedev said, no, that's not going to happen. We don't want that, because that means we're going to have to get Kiev too. So you're just getting a lot of mixed messages all around. You have to look at what is happening. Russia is dusting off thousands of more tanks. It's looking as though there will be another covert style of mobilization. It's looking like Putin is trying to change the laws in such a way that he doesn't have to declare mass mobilization while getting the numbers that they're going to need to do the next major offensive, which may not come for another year. We just don't know at this point how long these things are going to take. And the situations are just getting more intense the world over. And if we were in a thriving economy, if everybody was making money, if globalization and the global coupling were at their pinnacle as they were pre-2020, a lot of this stuff, you know, people would have no need to fight. I mean, why fight if everybody's making money? It's when people aren't making money, that's when the wars start. Because that's when it becomes all the more important that you have access to that low-hanging fruit, which will increase your margins, whatever they might be. In Taiwan, for example, it's going to be the chips. It's going to take the US a long time to export and reach technological parity with the South Koreans in terms of the nanometer scale of chips that they're engineering. So it's things like that that are going to give us a leg up in the future. Now, it's not the end of the world, but it could be. I mean, look at this. I didn't even talk about this the other day. Brazil, like 80% of the country, Brazil, a massive country of like 150, 200 million people, total blackout, okay? Fortunately, it was only a few hours, but we're going to see this more and more. Energy scarcity is a real thing. And now, and this one I'm actually kind of a little suspect of, because one day this guy comes out and says, hey, yeah, there's biolabs there, right? And then the next day, all of a sudden, the Russian head of Russian biological defense, the CBRN guy, comes out and he says, oh, yeah, you know, Washington's preparing for another pandemic. So are they just, and he's talked about this in the past, in past press conferences, this has been, you know, underground news about the whole biolab thing. And of course, you know, the Ministry of Truth is going to deny it. Do I have the Ministry of Truth website up? I don't. It's the Canadian Russian disinformation website. Got to put it up there. Got to disclaim. But, you know, biological warfare, I would not put it past because it is a thing. And we're entering the CRISPR era of gene editing. And it would not be on the realm of possibility for an individual, much less a nation state, to pull something like that off and to finally tune something to only ethnically target certain people. So there may well be something to this. And it's only a matter of time before we know who's going to get to it first. These are very, very dangerous times, okay? Very, very dangerous times. And all you trolls casting aspersions in the comment section, I just hope that you're prepping in secret. In fact, I know you probably are. I know you probably are. I understand that when you realize how vulnerable you are in the world, one of the first defense mechanisms is going to be anger. It's the process of grief. Kubler-Ross, right? What is it called? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So first you deny it, it's bullshit, nothing's ever going to happen, normalcy Norman, right? Then you get angry and you get in the comment section and you start typing, right? And then you get a little depressed, right? And then you try to bargain. You try to say, well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. And then you go into the conspiracy realm. Well, it's just it's the Illuminati. They're trying to get us all in lockdown again, which they probably are. But, then you go into a state of depression and you're like, well, nothing's worth it. And then you just go into acceptance and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to try to live to the fullest extent as I possibly can. I'm going to try to enjoy myself. I'm going to enjoy my family. I'm going to understand that I'm a mortal human being who at some day will die. It's inevitable. So I'm just going to try to enjoy my life. But I'm going to try my level best to put myself in a situation that I can be self-reliant if and when everything goes to shit. And that's the bottom line. That's all prepping is about. It's not about living forever. It's just about understanding the reality of what's going on. To kind of quote Gonzalo Lira, he used to always end his videos with, understand what's going on. So a little tribute to him there, but understand what's going on and prepare yourself for what might be coming. Is there anything else I got to talk about here? Yeah, so U.S. encourages NATO allies to send F-16 to Ukraine. Well, why not just send them yourself? Why not send it? Well, you know, because you're scared of the Russian nuclear weapons. That's why. This is kind of concerning. Putin is activating sleeper agents who have been in deep cover for many years in the UK. You don't say. Just like the malware that's on probably most of our critical infrastructure computer systems, which, when the time comes, will be activated, much like these sleeper agents. You can bet that there are sleeper cells everywhere, all over the world, people ready to be switched on. Now, but what's concerning about this is that something like this, a story like this, would precede concentration camps, okay? So, you know, before you start rounding up the Russian diaspora, I can never pronounce that word, you would have to put out stories like this. And then once we get to that level, that's where it gets very dangerous. And the same thing is happening over in Russia right now. And this is why so many diplomats are being expelled from places like Moldova and all over the European Union. Russia is arresting U.S. citizens as well on suspicions of espionage. And of course, this is just one day after the one in Britain was made publicly known about. So it's a tit-for-tat exchange right now. And it's very important to understand that the Russians right now in Ukraine, they understand that there is latent support there that is sleeping for them in at least the eastern part of Ukraine. There are people who are either indifferent, are just too scared, so they're telling the current authoritarian Ukrainian government, which it necessarily has to be, because of course they're in a state of defending their country against an invading force. I totally understand that, but that's what they are. They have to be very discreet in their true beliefs that maybe they do. Maybe they voted for Yanukovych back in 2014, you know. So, but the Russians understand that the only way you ever hold a nation like that after you captured it is by winning the hearts and minds of the people, at least the majority of them. Otherwise, you're just going to have endless guerrilla asymmetrical warfare to deal with, and it's going to be an Iraqi situation or an Afghan situation, and you're going to be evacuating the country with guys hanging off planes. So this is why they're playing it safe. This is why they're tiptoeing in. This is why they're not just leveling the place, because they probably understand and they probably view it from the perspective of our people are being held hostage. I'm just trying to look at it from their perspective. They probably look at it from the perspective of, you know, you got this element of cancer that we need to cut out, and they're trying to surgically remove that while preserving the life of the patient instead of just killing the patient. What would the point of that be? What would there be to conquer if you just completely destroyed the place? However, if it becomes a matter of national security to the greater Russian motherland at large, then they probably will level it, because then of course it becomes an existential crisis for them, right? So, yeah, we got conscriptions. Some people say Russia will accept nuclear doomsday because they're a more compliant bunch. You know, I hear this a lot, that Russians are more compliant and they're kind of go along to get along people, but I'm pretty sure if you did psychological studies, like I'm sure if you did the Milgram experiment in Russia, it might even, you know, you might even get better results. Because here we're more neurotic. We care more about what people think. Russia, of course, is becoming kind of westernized too. So in some ways they probably are. But I think that compliance is a universal thing no matter where you go in the world. For the most part, human psychology is mostly the same. In fact, it's probably a little bit more so in the East, in China, where they have more collectivist mindset. Here we buck the trends a little bit more. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we do comply, and the power of voluntary compliance is way more powerful. Like the power of signing up and getting a phone like this and putting all your information on it and signing up for something is way better than having it, you know, foisted upon you and forced upon you so that you have to use it. This is why the Brave New World, Aldous Huxley style of global control is way more effective than 1984 George Orwell. And in fact, the society starts at 1984, like China is with the credit system and all that. But they've realized, like in our society, it's way easier to control people if you can just get them to amuse themselves to death and keep them distracted with all kinds of shit like TikTok, and every single damn frickin' media agency now has those things that you just, those reels, shorts, whatever, you know, because it's all about distracting us to the bitter end. And boy, the end is nigh. What else do we got? Africa, I don't even know what's going on in Africa right now, but I know that there was an attack on some Nigerian soldiers recently, so they are planning on how they can intervene in that situation. We're going to see some stuff here on the Korean Peninsula soon, all right? And this is the other story that I didn't really touch on, is that now they're trying to say that Russia is giving North Korea nuclear technology. So who knows? I mean, they share a border. Is it possible? Where are they getting these 18-axle vehicles or whatever the heck they have? And this one is kind of concerning as well. Some disquieting information here. U.S. Air Force holds China war drill, rehearsing casualty evacuations in the Pacific. The drills were conducted last month by Air Mobility Command and 6 U.S. allies, including Japan and Australia, rehearsing the evacuation of thousands of casualties in the Pacific as part of its preparations for a future war with China in the region. Now, one more story, just one more. Oh yeah, and there's a bunch of warships from China and Russia in and around Japan. One more story. We usually don't go down under, but we're going to go do it today. I don't know much about this, but I just heard that there was nuclear material found in an Australian home raid. So who knows what this is about? You know, this was a small amount of uranium. Obviously, they're carrying something in a bucket. So is it that radioactive? I don't see any hazmat suits here, but yeah, we're entering this day and age where, you know, you could see some sort of attack, some sort of false flag attack. The more the pressure bears down on people, the greater the likelihood that people are going to lose their flippin' minds. Don't be one of those people. Don't enroll in any cults. Go your own way, as they say. Oh, I'll leave you with this funny note. Maybe not so funny. So Lindsey Graham comes out today defending Donald Trump, which is fine. You know, whatever. If that's your political persuasion, that's fine. But then I asked him, and I'm sure he hasn't responded because he doesn't know who I am from a hole in the ground. But I said, question, if you are vehemently against Russia and support arming Ukraine with everything, but Trump is against the war, how do you reconcile these two things? Simple question, because if Trump actually gets in and wins, so he claims, which I don't think he's going to be able to do, and nobody with half a brain thinks he's going to be able to end the war with one phone call. And if he does, there's going to be repercussions. It's not just like, oh, that's all we had to do. No, there's going to be repercussions. So, you know, how do you reconcile these things? Or do they have a plan for Trump? You know, do they have a plan to convince him, to compel him forward? Something just stinks in this whole milieu of people with the Stoltenbergs and the Grahams and this whole elite realm. It appears that they have some kind of plan, and it just doesn't, I don't think it's going to be one that's going to be to the benefit of the most utilitarian, we will say, plan that's going to benefit the most amount of people. Let me know what you guys think about all this madness in the comment section below, and make sure you're prepared for fire. One of the most underestimated things that preppers are going to be faced with is fire. You know, you don't even hear people talking about how to make fire anymore because there's just fire everywhere. But having fire suppression tools, you could support this channel by going to CanadianPreparedness.com. And that's all I'll ever ask people to do to support this channel and the employees within our shop is check out CanadianPreparedness.com. Great gear to prepare your family and things that are going to last a lifetime, like this. I just got myself a new knife. Now, you guys know, for all you lifers there who are still watching, I always carry the Benchmade bug out. And I'll stand by this. It's a gentleman's knife. It's minimalist. I always get people saying, that's not big and badass and Rambo enough. Well, I'm not trying to overcompensate with a knife. I don't need a knife to get in a knife fight with people. That's what these are for, okay? This is supposed to be for utility purposes. But I recently came across this. This is the Benchmade Mini Adamas. And this thing is just, you can't really see because it's not going to show it on the camera. This thing is just a beautiful knife. I love it. It's a bulkier, right? It's a little heavier. The thing I like about this is it's lightweight. I always carry it. It's never one of those things like, oh, I got to take this out of my pocket because I got to do something which requires more mobility. This one is a little bulkier, but it's still manageable and it's beefier. Like this is a true bug out knife because I could use it for more aggressive tasks out in the woods if I ever had to do something like that. And you just know you could beat it up a little bit more. You can beat up the Benchmade bug out. Still a great knife. Always keep it on me. I always keep 2 knives on me. 3 actually if you count the multi-tool. But this one, I'm starting to like it. I love the way it feels in the hand. It's got a very tough steel. I believe this is CPM Crewwear steel. It's got this, I can't remember what it's some kind of like, not polycarbonate, but laminate or something like that handle, but it's just, oh, it's a beautiful knife. Like when you get it in hand, you're like, oh yeah, this knife's gonna last forever. And I just love the way that Benchmade knives open, and Benchmade did not support this video, but we sell these. CanadianPreparedness.com. Get your gear for the apocalypse. When the shit hits the fan, I want to make sure everybody's got a Silky Saw and is out there cutting the forest down. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Later.